everyone, this is Meg at Chasing Retro. Today I am going to show you how I make a new spine for an old book. So this works for any old book except for the preparation is a little different for a book that's stapled together, such as a little golden book. If anyone is interested in me making a video on how to prepare those the way that I do it, please let me know. But this is just for, this tutorial is mainly for books that have a sewn in signature or a glued in signature without staples, just strings. It's just a little bit different, not terribly. And it's completely the same after you get to a certain point, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. So what you need for this project will be a pair of scissors, actually two. I have a pair of scissors that I use exclusively for cloth, and also one that I use for paper and plastic and string and all of the other things. And then you'll need a ruler, you'll need a pencil, you'll need a knife of some sort, a craft knife, an X-Acto knife. I'm going to put this one away because I feel less safe when I use this one. So this is a great one. It's a Fiskars ergonomic craft knife. I love it. You'll need a piece of chipboard. I have some that I ordered from Amazon a long time ago, but you do not have to do that. You can use a cereal box and turn it on the back side. You will need a piece of Tyvek. You can order your Tyvek from Amazon or a place like that. I choose to use the ones that you can get for free from the USPS for sending priority mail. So they're envelopes, and I just cut the edges off of 3 of the sides, so I end up with 2 flat sheets. And then I cut, of course, the sticky side off where you peel and stick. And then you'll need a cutting board, something to protect your surface. I know it's redundant, but I use 2 cutting boards because I really don't like to use this one for the majority of my cutting. And you'll need a paper towel or more for cleanup. You will need 2 types of glue, some sort of a white PVA glue. I use Tacky Glue by Aleene's, and you'll need Fabri-Tac. I like to use both of these for different parts of the project, and I'll explain that in a moment. The one other thing that you will need is a credit card, not a usable one, like an old credit card, a gift card, an ID card, something like that that you can use to spread and move things around and get where you need them. I don't know where mine is at the moment, so I'm actually going to use one of these garden markers. It's just a little thin, flat piece of plastic. You can do that. You could also, it'd be a little bit thicker, but you could use a bone folder for this too. All right, the first thing we need to do, one last piece of information. If you don't already wear glasses, wear a pair of safety glasses, just because you never know what will happen when you're using a craft knife. That's more important, I think, when you're doing a book with staples and you're trying to get staples out of the cardboard, but always a good idea just to protect your eyes. And in my case, I can't see unless I do that. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to I'm just going to briefly summarize how easy or difficult it will be to get this book apart. This one seems to be pretty intact, so this will take some work. This will dull your craft knives pretty quickly. I will warn you, this library binding cloth right here just does a number on them. So you will probably need some replacement blades to switch out when you're done with this project. But basically you're going to see, as without damaging the cover, just pull it out just enough so that you can get your craft knife in there without putting it all the way through. You don't want it to come through here. It's fine if it comes through here because this is where your new book will start, right here on this ledge. So from this part over is disposable, unless you want to use this as a bookmark or something like that inside your journal. But sometimes it's easier to see it if you put it upright like this. And you're just going to run the craft knife in that seam. You will hear and feel some popping. That's fine. That is some of the threads. You may have to go over it several times. I'm going to turn it upside down and do the same thing. I guess it's good that I got a challenging one for the video to show y'all that it's not always one and done with this project. Okay, so now I've gotten it away enough that I can see the strings that are holding this book together. Can you see that? This is going to take some more elbow grease. I'll probably put this on fast speed and get through it so you don't have to watch this whole part. Okay, as you can see now, I have separated the book spine itself from the book block. And this does have staples in it. I stand corrected. We will not be taking these staples out though, because I don't plan to use these pages as intact signatures like I would for a little golden book. I will just rip these out and use these for images to make ephemera out of. Okay, so now that we have that side done, we're going to turn it over and do the same thing on the other side. That side was a lot easier, as you can see. The book block is out. So I like to just store these in a tote, and I can just pull from them as I need them. If there's any images in these books that I know I will never use, then I just throw them away. Honestly, I don't believe in keeping every single piece of paper because we don't have room for that. So keep the ones that you think you'll be able to use one day. All right, I was going to try to pull that, but that's not coming cleanly, so I'm going to cut it. You don't want to mar this, especially if you're going to keep this as your inside book papers. I don't know yet if I'm going to or not. I'm leaning toward covering it up with the decorative paper, and I probably will because I need to show you guys on video how to do that. But don't just start continuing to rip. Now is not the time to do that. You need to get the covers separated fully from your spine. So the way you do that is grab a ruler, a metal one preferably. And I'm right-handed, so I always start with the left side first. And you're going to use your finger to feel where that cardboard inside that paper, I guess this would be called paper, where the woven paper / cloth begins. And you're going to just put that ruler there and hold it down very strongly and run the knife down. I think I might need a new knife blade. It should not take this many runs to get this separated, but for the purpose of doing this video today, we'll just press on. I rotate the book, just like I said, I'm right-handed. It's easier for me this way. And I'm also not having to reach over this to hold the ruler down. It's much easier if I have it on this side. It is not wanting to let go at the bottom there. Okay, now I said to use a metal ruler, and here is why. If you have a all wooden ruler, as you go down, I've done this from experience. As you go down, you will start carving off slices of your wooden ruler. The exception would be if you have a wooden ruler with a metal edge that's fused in between it. Let's see if I have one here. Yep. It's very narrow, but you can see that this wooden ruler does have a metal straight edge glued in between this. It's almost like a paint stick, really. That would be fine to use one of these, but for ease, I just say if you can find an all metal ruler, use that. Now, let me clean up my little workspace with my Ladybug vacuum. Sometimes you'll get books that are extremely musty, mildewy, things like that, and you will smell that odor when you start cutting into them. I really don't think it's a biohazard to breathe in that dust, but if that is the type of book that you're cutting into and you do not want to breathe that in, if you have very sensitive allergy issues, I would suggest when you're done, don't do what I just did. Take the cutting board outside, blow it off outside, rinse it in the sink and dry it and come back, something like that. Normally at this point, I would take scissors. Sometimes you have to use the really small scissors and go through and trim all the way down so you can get as close to that cardboard as you can. But honestly, this looks pretty good. I got almost to it within maybe a millimeter or so. So I don't think I'm gonna have to do that to this one. I find that happens more with little golden books for some reason. So this one is ready for the next step. Let me make sure this, for some reason, this looks taller than it needs to be. Let me just shave off this little bit right here. If you want a straight book, you need to start with a straight spine. So you want to make sure that the spine is going to be complete right angles and you don't want anything leaning this way as it goes up. Now comes the part where you have to remember at all times what direction your book is facing. You don't want to get to the end and realize that you made the spine and one cover is upside down. So the easiest way, obviously, right now is to see, well, here's the raw edge. This is obviously the inside. But as you add the next parts of, as you start cutting things and measuring, it would be very easy. You'd be surprised how easy it is to just let things turn. And then next thing you know, it's all wonky. This helps me because I can remember red on the front, purple on the back. But you can also write a small F and B for front and back to help you organize and orient it the right way. Now, this book that I'm making, I believe I'm going to make 2 signatures. And so that will determine how many signatures will determine how wide your new spine is going to be. There's many schools of thought on this. I prefer to do 2 signatures with 12 to 18 pages in each one. Some people do the same amount of pages but do 4 signatures because they want the books to lay more flat. That is personal preference. As long as your book turns out like you want it, experiment and see what you like to do with your books. But for me, the recipe that I generally follow for a 2 signature journal is 1.5 inch spine for a 2 signature journal, each one holding 12 to 18, sometimes up to 20 pages. That can create a very slight gator mouth if I stuff it full of ephemera, but that's okay because I like gator mouths, and so far I think my customers have as well. But if you don't like that, be sure to watch other videos on how to determine the width of the spine and how many signatures, because that may not be your preference, and that's totally cool. So 1.5 inch spine has to be built out of this chipboard. Some people just eyeball it and cut it. I'm not really a type A person, but for this part of the bookmaking process, I am. I do measure. I try to measure to the nearest 1/8 of an inch. This book is exactly 9 inches tall. So I know that my built spine is going to be 9 inches tall. Look at this. This is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of chipboard. So I'm going to have to go this way. So I'm just going to go ahead and make some marks on 9 inches all the way across. Okay, and I'm going to draw a line showing me that this is where I need to cut to make the spine as tall as my book. Now I'm going to go 1.5 inch twice. So the first one, again, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to put the 0, not the edge of the ruler, but the 0 line on the very edge of that chipboard, and I'm going to go to 1.5. I'm going to do that all the way down so I can make another line. Okay, we're gonna go out from that one and do the same thing again. 0 line, mark 1.5. All right, so the reason I did 2 is we're going to make this double height. We're gonna put one on top of the other. That will give us as close to this height of the original book as we can get. If you have an exceptionally thick book, you may need to do 3, but in my history, 2 generally is sufficient. Some people use their trimmer to do this part right here. I don't do that because I feel like it wears my trimmer blade out very quickly if I cut chipboard. So I just use scissors for this part. And we'll set this aside for the next one. All right, we're gonna use glue now, and the glue that I prefer to use for this step is the tacky glue because I put my finger in it and I really don't want this to touch my skin any more than necessary. It's just so much more toxic. At least it feels that way based on the scent of it. And so I'm going to just cover this as well as I can. I have a pretty wide opening on this glue, so it comes out fairly fast. If you have it in an icing bottle only, it'll take a while. I do keep some in an icing bottle with the fine tip for, you know, working on ephemera and things, but I always buy another bottle of this and leave it in the bottle with a wider opening for applications like this. So once it looks kind of like that, you can smooth it out. This is the part that makes me think about being in elementary school. You know, when we had our teachers encouraged us to get our hands dirty and stuff. I loved that. I know a lot of people don't, but if you don't like this part, you can use a silicone brush or something like that. No big deal. We're gonna place this other one right on top of that and make sure that it's stuck very well. It doesn't have to be 100% the same width. It's fine. This is going to be covered up. This is mainly to provide a substantial base for poking holes and sewing in your signatures. You can even use your bone folder for this part, or if you have a roller of some sort, to make sure there's no air gaps in here at all. Okay, we're gonna move forward. I typically don't wait for this part to dry. It's not that necessary. It's gonna be a long while before we sew the signatures in, obviously, so it has plenty of time to dry. This is when having an extra cutting board comes in handy. You can use the edge of the cutting board to line up your book to make sure that it's straight. And you're just gonna line this up as so. And you're going to leave the very, very smallest minute gap. This just allows the book to be able to open and close freely. If I had to guess, I would say this is probably 1.5 millimeters, maybe. You don't have to measure that, just so that you can, you know, a little crack that you can peer through. And it will shift. It will not stay like this because you'll see in this next part, it's really hard to get this part down and keep everything exactly like you have it here. All right, same thing for this. Oh, look at me, I just hit it and messed it up. I'll have to bring that back and fix it. Now we're gonna measure this guy. Now, a pencil probably will not mark on here, so it's fine to grab a Sharpie. And we're gonna go 1.5. I'm sorry, not 1.5. This is where you need to, let me bring this back. This is where you need to use your eyeballs. This is not gonna be a perfect measurement. I probably should write down a perfect measurement if I do 1.5-inch spines as often as I do. But typically, my rule that I typically follow is, see how far that Glabbery fabric, binding fabric goes in? You're going to kind of recreate the same thing with this. They put that there so when a child opens and closes this book thousands of times over the years, it will, the front and back covers will stay on, and they did. I mean, this book is in great condition for the age. So we're going to do about the same thing with this. That would make it about 1/2 inch, right? Yep. So about 1/2 inch overlap on both sides. And you can kind of feel it with your finger to see where that is. And we're just going to make a line. And I'm just going to estimate 9 inches. We will probably have to cut some extra off, but because when I cut these, it's not always straight across, I want to make sure I have enough to trim up at the end. It's okay that the black line is here. If your fabric is dark, you will not see it. My fabric is not dark, but it may be that I need to go back and trim mine. I still prefer using the inside of the envelope versus the outside because this is harder to cover up. If you get your whatever you use for this part on here and your fabric shows all of the words, no big deal. You can just put a very thin piece of computer paper, white computer paper over this to hide it, and just be sure that you glue it down very well and have no air bubbles. I'm just going to cut this off just to be safe, to make sure there's no black showing. I guess ideally I should have used like a yellow Sharpie or something, but all right, so here we go. You don't want it to go above the book. Can y'all see that? You don't want it to go above the book. You don't want it to go too far below either. Maybe 1 millimeter. So I'm going to mark it here. And I'm just going to cut straight across. And we have our bowstring strip. Okay, let's get this book lined up again on the cutting board. Leaving that little bit of a gap between the two. When you apply the glue in a minute, you'll see that you're going to knock it around a lot. But that's fine. We can always fidget with it again right before we place this down. You have a little bit of forgiving time with Fabri-Tac, maybe 1.5 minutes. So whether or not that means you can still stick it down and it stick okay, or you stick it down immediately and then have to move things around a little bit. I'll show you that in a second. But you don't have forever. You have less time than you would with this. But I feel that the Fabri-Tac is imperative for this step because not many things stick really well to this, and you want this to stick to your spine and your book more than anything else. The fabric is just an added bonus protection and holder together, if you will. This is the most important piece, I find. I don't use my finger for this one. I've told y'all that earlier. You want to work as quickly as you can though, so you're going to put it on all 3 parts, the spine in the middle, and that little 1/2 inch going in on both sides of the book cover. Okay, everything looks all right, so I'm going to place it down. And here's where you will use that little thing that I told y'all about, the gift card or phone folder or whatever you have. This just makes sure that it's going to stick. You can go in that little corner if you want to. There's no glue in there right now, but we will put some glue on the back side when we do the fabric. I should say back, is the front of the book. We will put glue down in that little channel. Okay, while we still have some wiggle room, I quickly flip the book over and I look to make sure the gap is the same on both sides and all the way down. This one needs to be moved a little bit. Okay, that's all. It's like just minuscule little changes you can make while that glue is still setting. Very carefully, see if it looks right when you open it like that, or not open it, close it like that. Looks uniform on both sides, yep. So I'm going to put it down again and continue to press it until the glue has set. Got a cat hair in there, always happens. Even if you don't see them, they're there and they will stick themselves down right before the product is going down on the glue. It is like some sort of scientific law. Okay, we're gonna pause here a minute and talk a little bit about fabric and end pages. At this point, if you wanted your end pages to go on top of your fabric that's gonna be wrapped around, you can wait on that. You can wait on the end papers. However, if you want the fabric, the fringed edge of the fabric to show and lay on top of your papers, you need to glue them down now. I'm trying to decide what I want to do. The fabric I have chosen, let me grab it, is this. And so I just have to determine whether or not I want to put it on top or put the papers on top of it. So I'm going to pause this and I'm going to think about it, and then I'll come back and show you what to do. All right, I'm back and I have decided to put the paper down first. So I have chosen a paper that I think looks good with the cover. It kind of goes with the theme of the houses and the streets and the community. These cards I think are going on vacation, but still pretty cool. That's the beauty of eclectic journals, which this will be. You can use the things that you're like, I really don't know how else I'm going to use this. So we'll use it today. I'm going to set this aside then, since we've decided to do the paper first. And we need to measure to see how wide and long to cut our papers. We want it to just cover up the old. So I'm going to say 5 3/4. Make sure this one's the same. It should be, but you never know. Yep, 5 3/4, and then the height will be 8 3/4. 5 3/4 by 8 3/4. First, we'll cut off this little piece at the top. They're always on here. Why is my thing not laying straight? Oh, I didn't put this back correctly. All right, let's trim off this little piece where they hung the paper pad. I don't think I've ever seen 12 by 12 paper pads hung on a rack, but you never know. So 5 3/4 by, let's do the height first. 8 3/4, let's do first. Eight 3/4 tall. And we can save this for, it'd make 2 cute little pockets. 5 3/4. 5 3/4. The depending on what type of journal you are making, now would also be the time to ink the edges. I don't think I'm going to do that on this one, but you would ink the edges before you put it down, just as a little bit of more visual interest and depth to your design. Always lay it down first before I glue it. Now, I'm a messy gluer, so I'm going to move this right here and put this here. I'm going to use Fabri-Tac for this as well, and I'm going to have to work quickly. But because we're adhering it and also touching the edge of the book that still has that original library fabric on it, I do not want it to lift up. I'm going to try not to get this on my nails today, because this stuff will ruin your nail polish. Normally, when I work on junk journal covers, my nail polish is just wrecked at the end of it, but we're gonna see what happens this time. You don't have to cover every square inch. Just try to get a pretty solid real estate covered on it, because as y'all know, this glue is not free. Here we go. Sometimes I use a paper towel for this part just because I feel like it works better than just my hand, in case I have any residual dirt or glue on my hand as well. This is super cute. I love this paper. This is paper from, let me see who made this. Jen Hadfeld. It's called This Is Family. And I don't know why it's called that, because it's more of a vacation theme, but I found it on clearance at Michael's for $5 recently. And when I see a paper pad that cheap, I get it, because I can find something to do with the paper. Unless it's holiday specific. Sometimes I won't if it's holiday specific. All right, my arm is officially tired now. Let's do the other side. All right, let's bring this back. This just adds another layer of protection too on this Tyvek, making sure that it is down good. Get the corners really well, especially if the book is dog-eared a little bit, because there's probably an air gap right there. All right. We are done with the Fabri-Tac. The rest of the fabric part is going to be this. Now, some people would say use Fabri-Tac for the rest of it, and that's fine. I just find that this, because I don't use my finger to spread it out, this leaves lines. And when you have a thin, delicate fabric like this, like a broadcloth versus like a thicker bark cloth, you can see where I put the glue. So I'm gonna use the tacky glue for this part. All right, this was a piece of a dress that I made for our daughter when she was about 18 months old. Obviously, the dress was not finished, so I saved it for posterity, and now I use pieces of it for junk journals. But this was the longest piece that I had. It was like a little bubble, like one of the crisscross things with the back with the matching diaper cover. So cute, but because she was so tiny, this is the longest single piece that I had. You don't have to have a long piece if you only have, I find that a fat quarter most of the time works great for this. But if you have an exceptionally tall book, or you have a fabric that you really want to use that is not at least double height of the book in inches, then you can always do a little shortcut or cheat sheet version, which would be, you just want to get the top and bottom covered like this. Say you had a piece that ended here. You could glue this down on the front of the book, and then you can come back with a separate piece and put it over that. I just like to have one solid piece if I can. So that's what I'm doing here. This fabric looks to be too wide. I wasn't sure, but I wanted to just go ahead and use the piece that I had, so I just went ahead and ripped it and ironed it. So what you want to achieve is you want to have enough fabric just to cover up this Tyvek and maybe go in a little bit more, maybe 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch, just so you can adhere it and it hides all of your scaffolding, so to speak. You also need to be aware that it will cover up part of the cover. So the least amount that you can spare, the better, because you don't want to cover up the key parts of the cover that you'd like. If you want to have the title intact, you need to be aware that if you need to shift it maybe this way a little bit so that more of this shows, and it's okay if more of this is covered, you can do that as well. But I'm just going to go through now and make a mark. Look at that. I've got, still have a little mark where I put a dart or something. I'm going to see how wide mine really needs to be. I'm using one piece, so what I will do is this will be where my fabric ends. I will cut it right here. As you will see, it starts to taper slightly. That's fine with me. I will probably put a pocket here and you won't notice that slight tapering. It's just the way the dress pattern was. I'm gonna use this though because I really like it and I think it matches the cover the best. So of which of these sides am I gonna tear off, because it is too long, wide. I think I'll do that side. All right, so I'm looking to see, just so that it gets past that Tyvek right there, maybe 1/4 of an inch, a little bit less. I'm gonna go over here to the same thing, and I'm going to make a little cut, and hopefully this will tear evenly. Everybody cross your fingers. Get rid of the extra string. That appears to have worked. Yay. Okay, so now we have what we need to get going. I'm gonna do it just another check to make sure my book is not upside down. It's not. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna line it up evenly on this again, because we want the fabric to be able to wrap around in an even line. You don't want it to go crooked as it goes up the side of the book. So I'm going to put this right in the middle, and I'm gonna glue this down right here. You always start with this one piece, and then you flip to the front of the book, and then you come back and do the inside. I guess that's how everybody does it. That's how I do it. I call this sort of my placeholder. Again, you want to smooth it out for this part because you don't want the little beads of glue showing through your cloth. And you just pull it up. Try to get it so that it's pulled taut with the edge of the book all the way across. Great. Now we're gonna flip it. And you're gonna just, the easiest way to do this is just, if you pull it gently, it should lay pretty straight. But you may wanna just double check and measure and say, is this gonna be the same as it goes up? Well, it needs to go this way a little bit. Yep, that's better. 5.5. Yep, that's good. So I need to remember when I place it, I'm gonna let it sit right here as the eye begins. Okay, so because we remembered that we have this much right here to go all the way across the book, we're gonna do our glue lines with that as a guide. This is where you will put glue into the crease where the spine is going to have that gap between the spine and the cover. I'm putting a little, you don't want to drench it, but you do want to put some glue in there. And then you go on the spine part. And then you go into that channel. And then you go onto the back of the book. You have a lot more time to work with this glue. It's slow drying, kind of like Elmer's glue. Which is good if you're doing more than one journal cover in a row. Bad if you're like, I need to get this one journal made as fast as possible. You're gonna have to set it aside for at least 30 minutes before you can proceed. I set mine aside for at least a couple hours, if not overnight. Okay. Remember what we said about the guide, using that letter as a guide? Yep. Let's measure again just to be sure. Oh, I think I need to go over just a little bit. You also want to keep in mind with patterns like this is a form of a stripe, if you will. These flowers are on here in a line, and so you want the line to be even as much as possible all the way up the book. I love gingham, but I will tell you that making gingham book spines is probably the hardest thing for me to do, because the gingham always looks like this if I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing and how I'm laying it down. I'm putting it in that channel, but I'm not shoving it or anything. I just want it to have a little bit of glue adhesion to the glue that I put on the original sides of that book cover and chipboard. Now we're going to flip it, and we're going to connect it down here once we trim it. Let's trim it here. I like to have a little bit of an overlap. It's fine if the fabric comes out the bottom of the book. And I like the raw edge. Okay, just like before, we're gonna use the cloth up here as an estimate of, or a guide rather, of how we put the glue down. And you're gonna put glue on top of this fabric right here. It's fine if the fabric is not adhered all the way to the edge of the fabric, because you really, until you know what you're gonna do with this, you may end up putting a pocket, and so it won't matter. The pocket will hold down that fabric edge. So I'm not really fixated on making sure it's glued all the way to the edge. Does this look even to me? I think so. I hope so. This one's not going to have nearly the channel that the other side did. Obviously, you just want to get the air bubbles out of it. So now, oh, I see another air bubble. Now you want to gently close it to make sure that it looks okay when you do that, and it does. Then you'll notice when you open it, oh, it didn't do it. Yay, it's being good today. Sometimes when you open it back up, it will bubble up and you'll have to push it back in there again. It did not do that today. That means we have enough glue in there. Now, I will tell you this. I should have put this at the beginning. At this point, I would recommend not letting it dry flat. Other people may disagree with me, but I had a really bad thing happen one time. I let it dry flat, and when I went the next day to pick up the book and close it, it was so stuck and in this channel that when I closed it, it ripped the cover image at this point and pulled it over this way. It was very sad. I had to use lots of rickrack to hide it. So when I get to this point, because I know that the glue is in that channel and everything is adhered like it should be, I set it like this on a surface that can be if the glue were to seep down or something, it's fine. So I'll probably leave it on this cutting board, and I let it dry either like that or like that. Never fully closed, never fully open. Just enough that the next day when I go to close the book, it's not going to either rip the fabric or pull the book cover image off of its base. So that is all you do to prepare a new spine on an old book. I really, really, really hope this was clear. It was not scripted, as you can tell. I kept forgetting things here and there, but I think I covered everything that I needed to. When I first started doing this, I would have to watch a tutorial every time I did it, probably for the first year and a half. But after a while, the more you do it, you'll realize it's like a recipe that's really familiar and comfortable and a family favorite. You don't need to look at the book anymore. So eventually you'll be able to do your own thing almost on, rote. You'll just start working. You can put a video on in the background. It's great. So I really hope that this did help clear some things up for you. If there is something that I did not make clear, or you need to know maybe a piece of advice for a unique situation or type of book that you have, you can put it in the comments and I'll see if I can help you. But otherwise, I really hope that this helped you, and I hope that you guys have a lovely day. See you in the next one.